regardless of what they actually believe to be true, repeating and implementing the same failed two-state paradigm time after time after time, and maintaining this dependence position towards the United States regardless of who is in charge, and of maintaining this defensive posture on everything having to do with explaining Israel's position abroad time after time. So it occurred to me, and not for the first time, that obviously something has to be done to change the way that Israelis view the media. Because one of the reasons why the media is so powerful, remains so powerful in Israel, despite the fact that it has led Israelis down the garden path time after time after time, is because people still take them seriously. And if somebody is on television, then they are widely respected as an expert because they're on television. And so I decided that if we're going to do something to change the media environment in Israel, what we really have to do is cut the media down to size in the public's eyes. That until the public stops feeling beholden to somebody because they're on television, we're not going to have an expanded media environment that's so desperately needed by the Israeli people, by the Israeli government. So I was trying to figure out how to do this on a budget. And I decided that probably the best way to do it was through satire, because one of the insights that you find if you study the history of totalitarianism and if you study the history of authoritarianism is that dictators, whoever they are on a political level, really cannot stand being the butt of jokes. And that humor has humor has a liberating ingredient to it that is missing from just long columns or essays that people have to read and really think about. Because when you laugh, you feel free to actually talk about what you think. And if until now, the reason why the media has really been able to control and dictate the terms of debate in Israel, because people have been intimidated by media celebrities on television. So if you can laugh about the absurdities of news coverage, then you can also feel free to talk about how you really feel. And both electoral results in Israel and polling results in Israel over the past generation show that the majority of Israelis know what reality is, and know that what we're getting is not true, and know what the challenges are. It's just that they don't feel empowered to explain it. And so LACMA is a website that I started, and then I have, you saw, my team of extraordinarily talented performers and writers and production staff. And by the way, they didn't think much of my singing voice, which is why I'm the only one there without a solo. So it's not my talent, it is really the talent of the people who are working with me on LACMA. And our success in Israel itself has really been revolutionary, and I'm very pleased and proud of our success. Right now we're negotiating with Israel Television to turn the Tribal Update, our satire on our television, on the internet television show, into a television show in Israeli television, so that it would be a weekly half-hour show in Israel on television. And now we're just haggling over the price, but we've determined what kind of woman we are. We do want to sell out and go on TV. That's absolutely a goal of ours. It would be the first time, actually, in the history of Israeli television that you'd actually have a pro-Israel satire show on Israeli television. So we consider that to be a revolutionary triumph, and we're all revolutionaries anyway. So we're excited about that, but you know, it was our understanding of the problem with the media that enabled us to come out with this rapid response to the flotilla in a way that nobody else in Israel and the Israeli government or elsewhere could do. Because when we saw what happened with the Mavi Marmara that morning, my producer, Shlomo Blas, called me up and he said, actually I didn't know about it because I was I was doing something else that morning. I didn't even listen to the radio. And so he called me up and he told me what had happened, and he said, but we had already, in preparation for the flotilla, been planning on doing the We Con the World song that we did in English in Hebrew. That was already our plan, because for 3 weeks there had been a build-up to the fact that we were going to have a clash with the Turks, and we understood what was going on, so we had been planning this. So when he told me what had happened that morning, and that the CNN and the BBC that he'd been looking at were just, vile, he said, well, maybe we can do this in English. And I said, sure, let's do it in English. And that's how it happened, that the incident, I think, occurred on March 31st, May 31st, and we put this out 3 days later. We wrote it the next day, produced it 2 days later, and put it up on the web after 3 days, because we already understood. Thank you. We already understood what was coming, and so many other people were taken by surprise. And again, why were they taken by surprise? Because they were looking at reality through the incredibly distorted lens of the media coverage in Israel. The Israeli media believe their own distorted coverage, and unfortunately many of our political leaders do as well. And unfortunately, as we saw with the paintball guns, apparently the commander of our Navy also believes the things that he reads in the news, which is even more frightening. So we ended up with this thing. Now, looking forward, the We Con the World was such a success. We were really shocked. In under a week, it had had over 3 million views on YouTube, which made it one of the most watched clips in the history of YouTube. And then Warner Brothers complained apparently to YouTube and said that we were violating their copyright, and so we were taken down. And it took us a while to figure out the whole legal procedure of appealing, so it took us about a week to appeal, and then that took another 10 business days for them to put it back up after we submitted our appeal, but it's back up, and now it's over 5 million views. So what we learned from that, obviously, but our lesson that we took away from the success of We Con the World is that just as this is working for the Israeli audience, there's also room and an importance for this in the Western world, that it's important that we develop the capacity to produce these kinds of videos on a regular basis in English. Not just, right now we're subtitling all of our Hebrew stuff, but we actually have to do productions in English with English-speaking actors and English-speaking writers. So I'm actually here in the United States now trying to raise money through the Center for Security Policy in Washington, where I work, for LACMA in English, which we're hoping to launch in the next couple of months. And so that's our plan, because we also think that this is a vehicle that can reach young American Jews in a way that other things have been unable to reach them, because it turns Israel into something that is attractive and entertaining and appealing and empowering. Again, the strength and the importance of humor is that it empowers people to discuss things that they otherwise would feel intimidated to mention, to express. Because once you laugh at something, it's no longer frightening. Once you laugh at the fact that these terrorists on the Mavi Marmara are stabbing Israelis and pretending that they're peace activists, you're no longer intimidated into pretending that they're peace activists. You've already been empowered to talk about the truth and to have a relevant conversation about it with the people that you're in contact with in your dorm, in your class, in your neighborhood, in your community. And this is something that is extremely important, because it's my contention, and I think that this is really an American sensibility, perhaps more than it is an Israeli sensibility, that people are generally a lot brighter than our elites give them credit for. I think that when given a chance to choose between nonsense and truth, people tend to be more attracted to truth than to lies, and people tend to be able to see the difference between them when they're presented with both. And I think that the most important thing moving forward for Israel, as well as for the rest of the free world, the United States first and foremost, is to have is to engender discourses about current